said I thought Landon Knack should be the guy for the Dodgers rotation for Blake Snell, and he tried his best to prove me wrong. The good thing is that the bullpen came through and the offense did enough. The Dodgers won. Let's talk about it. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This is the daily podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us where you find podcasts and on YouTube. You can become an everyday by listening and watching every day. And you can make that easier by subscribing and get notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube, like we are here on Wednesday night. If this is your first time listening, watching, welcome. I'm Vince Samperio. That's Jeff Snyder. And we are Locked On Dodgers. We've been Locked On Dodgers since 2019. And we've covered the Dodgers in our own ways for over a decade. So we've seen a lot of Dodgers, talked a lot of Dodgers, and just like they frustrate us, sometimes they can do things that make us happy, and that's win games. And Jeff, the Dodgers won a game. They ended the losing streak, and happy flight home, I guess.
Yeah, as happy as it can be when you lose the first two games of the series and 4 of the first 5 games of the series. And this win wasn't without its own frustration. It was one of the more frustrating wins I can remember. But in the end, yeah, I mean, what goes down in the record book is the win, and we will take whatever wins we can get, especially this road trip, getting that done, getting off the East Coast for a little while. All in all, yeah, I mean, I'll take a 6-5 win over a 6-5 loss any day.
Yeah, for the first 4 hitters coming up and the first 4 hitters all scoring, I don't know if there can be a game more frustrating with that kind of start, but there was. And most of it was because Landon Knack did not give the Dodgers length and did not give the Dodgers quality. He gave them neither of those things and could have been worse if not for Mookie Betts, which I'll talk about a little bit in the second segment. But yeah, Jeff, after I talked about Landon Knack being the guy that I would want to be in the rotation and everything else, he didn't quite have it. And again, we're going to mention the word weather, but ultimately you kind of got to push through sometimes.
Yeah, I have no idea if this was weather related or not. Dave Roberts after the game, I thought it was just going to be a cliche quote. Because he said he just didn't have feel for and I thought he was going to name a specific pitch or whatever. And then he said baseball. Didn't have feel for the baseball. I'm like, that is blunt and accurate. Like, yeah, he was just bad. He couldn't throw strikes. And as Joe Davis mentioned on the broadcast, that's not usually his issue. Throwing strikes, he only had 3 walks in a game one time last year, his rookie year. He's good at throwing strikes. Now sometimes he gets hit hard, just like Wroblewski. He gave up too many homers last year. But throwing strikes hasn't generally been his problem. And I texted you early in the game and mentioned that both pitchers seemed thrown off by the fact that the umpire was entirely unaware that the edge of the strike zone exists in that first inning. He was bad, and it was both pitchers, and it seemed to rattle both guys because both pitchers got squeezed. And so it's like, well, what, I got to throw it down the middle or something, and so then they got hit. And Irvin's was more, he just got hit more. And then Knack's was just kind of couldn't throw a strike. But I think they were both thrown off by the umpiring. The umpiring did get better as the game went on. The umpire remembered what a strike zone was. And so I guess that's good. But ultimately, it helped Irvin more than it helped Knack, because Irvin got through 6 innings after throwing 36 pitches or whatever in the first inning. And he had no business getting even through the 3rd inning in that one. But instead, it was Landon Knack who didn't get through the 3rd.
Yeah, Landon Knack, the times he's, at least from watching, the times that he struggled a little bit last year or later in the games, mostly, he was pretty good through the first couple of times for the most part. The length was a little bit of the issue with him. And he was one, like, he did throw strikes, but when he would seemingly try to nibble around the corners is when he would run into issues, because then he'd, maybe lose it, not get a strike call, or just be a ball anyways, and then get into some unfavorable counts. And, guys can hit stuff. His stuff has improved from last year, from everything we'd seen up to this point. So you're hoping it was just an issue of, a bad day. And maybe that's what the Dodgers think as well, because after the game, Dave Roberts did say that Landon Knack was going to get another start. I would imagine that supersedes the Wroblewski one, especially considering Wroblewski was sent down. and they would need an injury to bring him back before the Dodgers would need a starter. So, yeah, his next start will be in LA. It'll be against the Rockies, the soft landing spot we talked about for Robleski earlier. This is the same soft landing spot for Knack. And I'm going to bank on that, bad day. And, I still have trust in him of being a good spot starter. And that's what he is right now.
Yeah, I'm relatively confident that he will pitch much better against the Rockies at Dodger Stadium than he did against the Nationals today. I don't know how much better. I don't know if it'll be because he's actually a better pitcher that day. But yeah, he was bad today. And just like this morning when we were talking about Justin Robleski, and BC had mentioned that he looked like the bad pitcher he was last year. And I said, no, he looked 3 times worse. Knack today looked quite a bit worse than the iffy rookie that we saw last year. And so if we can just get that iffy rookie back and give us 5 innings and 4 runs, the Dodgers will probably win against the Rockies. It's just, that 5 innings thing. This was a case where Knack couldn't wear it because of the pitch count. He threw 41 pitches in the first inning. Did you hear what Joe Davis said on the broadcast, Vince, about that? That there had only been, I forget what it was, like a handful of times in Dodgers history that they had a start. Oh, no, it was they hadn't had a starting pitcher throw more than 40 pitches in the first inning in 7 years. And now it's happened twice in the last 2 weeks. Between Rokia and this one. Yeah, I mean, it's just
that's out of necessity.
Yeah, it puts the team in a bad situation because once you throw 41 pitches in the first inning, there's no way you're getting deep in the game unless you do what Jake Irvin did, I guess. Irvin had to go over 100 pitches or right around 100 pitches to get through those 6. And that with the Dodgers helping him out, a 6-pitch 5th inning, Knack would have needed a lot of help to get through even 5 innings in this one. And instead he got through 2 1/3.
Yeah, and it's possible that if Knack would have been, more in the strike zone, he would have been able to be a little bit more efficient. But the fact of the matter was, he was kind of all over the place. And when he did throw it, it was a little bit, too direct, and the Nationals got to him. And yeah, it's one of those things where would the Dodgers have preferred him to go longer? Yeah, obviously. But the bullpen did come in and do the job. They do have a day off on Thursday. And then Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who's been pretty efficient in games so far this year, on Friday. So it seems like it'll work out for them, assuming Yamamoto does what he can normally do. But ultimately, they're going to need guys to give them a little bit more length when it comes to the games. And hopefully, a trip back home to a little bit better weather. And we'll help these guys find that grip or find the footing or find whatever it is they need to get a little bit of some depth into the game.
Yeah, and when you look at it, with Justin Robleski being able to get through 5 and only having to use 2 relievers yesterday, and then today they used a bunch of relievers, but Jack Dreyer is the only one who threw even 20 pitches. Dreyer threw 25, and it was Bonda threw 11, Yates threw 12, Scott threw 12, Vesey threw 16, Treinen threw 18. With the day off tomorrow, everybody except maybe Dreyer is going to be available on Friday. And, if you can get 6 innings from Yamamoto, it does. The bullpen is in a decent spot there to get back on track. Obviously, it would have been really nice for Knack to get through more today. But in the end, the Dodgers coming back and winning that game when really Landon Knack gave them no business winning that game. But they came back and won it. And that's as much as you can hope for in that situation. And that's what you kind of hope for with this team, this offense, what they can do. You can overcome a bad start sometimes.
Yeah, the complete opposite of Landon Knack was the Dodgers bullpen, and that's what we're going to talk about next, because they won this game for the Dodgers, and that's a big part of it. And there's a lot of guys that have been pitching pretty well, and overall the team bullpen looks pretty good. So we're going to get into that. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Just Ingredients. When it comes to fueling your body, quality matters. That's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. They have an NSF-certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure that they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. If that's something you're into, or if you just want something that tastes great and works, I got it's a greenback, so it might get hidden right here, but strawberry limeade pre-workout. I've said before, I'm not a guy that does pre-workout. I've always relied on natural energy, but I'm getting up there in age, and I wanted to try out what Just Ingredients has because maybe some cleaner would have gave me took away the apprehensiveness I have with pre-workout, and that's what it's done. It's clean, it's transparent ingredients. You see what's on there. They don't have all the artificial junk. You don't feel crummy or bad. Who says crummy these days? But you feel great, and it helps fuel your performance, get your workout in. Had a 2.5 mile walk earlier, and you don't really need pre-workout for that. But I was dragging a little bit, so boom, took the pre-workout, got it in. Just Ingredients helped me out. So if you want to do the same, you can visit justingredients.us and use code LOCKEDONMLB for 20% off. And for more wellness tips, follow just.ingredients on Instagram. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers one of the listens of your day. First listen, last listen. We might have been both today because earlier today we were live, and now Wednesday night we're live. So maybe we were first and last listen of the day. But we appreciate everybody that listens. And remember, you can check out Locked On MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB account wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. So, all right, Jeff, Dodgers bullpen. We've talked about it, and it's been good for the majority of the season. There's been a couple games where they didn't help out as much as they could. They've been the most used bullpen to this point. I would imagine that stat continues from the weekend since they got not as many innings from guys in the last 3 games, or combined, not total. But yeah, they came in and they didn't allow a hit up until that last inning when Blake Treinen came in. And he just allowed the 1 hit. Obviously, it was a little bit of a scary 9th inning. But from Jack Dreyer to Blake Treinen and everyone in between, there was a lot of strikeouts and a lot of very good pitching.
Yeah, there were a couple walks by the bullpen, but overall, yeah, the 4 base runners in what is that 6 and 2/3 innings. You'll take that any day for sure. Their ERA on the season is down to 1.95, and every guy who pitched in this game. We talked about it during spring and everything. Like, the Dodgers have potential to put together a bullpen full of high leverage arms. And, in this game, yeah, Dreyer, you probably wouldn't call him a high leverage arm yet, but he's also got a 0.96 ERA. Like, I think Kasperius is the only one better. Is Kasperius still lower than that? Anyway, they're right there in that area. Dreyer has been one of, if not the best reliever in the Dodger bullpen this year so far. And yeah, you take it all with a grain of salt, small sample size, all those things. I don't expect him to end the season with better numbers than Tanner Scott, but so far he's been better. Anthony Bonda, we talked about him. He was like one of the lower leverage guys. And other than his 1 bad game the other day, he's been outstanding this year. Everybody. And, Kasperius was the one of those guys who didn't pitch in this game.
Kasperius.
Okay, that's what I thought. I couldn't remember him giving up a run, so I was pretty sure it was still 0. Kasperius, though, is the only good reliever who didn't pitch in this game. And then Luis Garcia, who's just keeping a seat warm until somebody comes back. And, we'll talk more about the rehabbers in the next segment. But all in all, like, this bullpen has been outstanding, and it's not super flukish because you can make a really good case. Tanner Scott hasn't been as good as he should be. Kirby Yates has been really good at times, but also struggled a little bit. Alex Vesia has been more. Yeah.
Without the luck maybe from last year.
Yeah. And Bonda has the same ERA as Yates right now. So, they all, and Treinen has been a little bit up and down. Blake Treinen makes me nervous. I mentioned this to you when we were texting earlier. In a 1-run game, just because he is so incapable of controlling the running game at all, and he doesn't get a ton of strikeouts, and so you do run into things where there's a bloop hit, and yeah, that hit maybe a better center fielder catches that. I don't know, but soft contact sometimes lands, and then it's like, oh, now there's a runner on base, and so of course he's on second base now, and it took a great defensive play from Kike Hernandez to keep that runner from scoring. Luckily, they got that great defensive play from Kike Hernandez after a great defensive play from Mookie Betts, saved a run earlier in the game. The defense, after letting us down, really stepped up in this game for sure.
Yeah, 2 big plays that saved at least a couple runs. And yeah, with Treinen, it's one of those where, him and Gratterall are in similar boats. Gratterall doesn't have quite the movement that Treinen has, but they're both guys that don't strike out too much and get beat by hard contact. And that's why but get beat by soft contact. That's why it's kind of tough sometimes with Treinen. And, realistically, I think if Tanner Scott had started off really, really good and kind of where he was at when the Dodgers faced him in the postseason last year, I do think he would be the guy getting a lot of these ninth innings and not coming in earlier in the game, unless it was, a string of lefties or a tough lefty or two tough lefties. I honestly believe that, but with him going earlier, Treinen was the guy. Treinen's walked the tightrope a couple times now. He's a guy that when he's on, but when he's off, that's when he can get beat with the soft contact and with control. Like there's times I don't think he knows how far his pitch is going to move, as weird as that sounds. So yeah, he's somebody to monitor, but it's one of those things where when it came down to it last year, he was nails, and we might have to walk that tightrope a couple times this year. But once he settles in, every year I feel like he settles in and he gives you like a 2-month stretch where he's just unbeatable.
Yeah. The funny thing is I really liked their usage of Tanner Scott in this game, bringing him in the 7th, because that was the top of the lineup. And that's the only time that the top of the lineup was guaranteed to get up again. If Blake Treinen had done his job, the top of the lineup wouldn't have come up again. So I kind of like that. It's like, toughest part, let's throw out our best reliever, especially because it's Abrams and Wood, who are both lefties. So let's give him the tough lefty. And it worked. Tanner Scott was awesome, struck out 2 of the 3 guys he faced. Really, really good. And yeah, ultimately, it was a little bit of bad luck to get that runner on base for Treinen, a little bit of good luck for Kike to make that play. You never know what would have happened if Freddie's at first base, because Freddie's a good defensive first baseman too. Obviously, he doesn't have quite the range, but he's also 6 inches taller than Kike. So
yeah, I feel like Kike plays almost second base sometimes when he's at first.
Did you notice? I meant to mention this. I never did the other day. That game the other day where I'm trying to remember which game it was. When it must have been one of the Phillies games when they scored on a chopper in the infield, and it was right up the middle. And Edman made the play just barely to the right side of second base, and Kike had originally gone for the ball, and so Edman ended up having to lob the ball over while Kike's back was still to him because he was sprinting back over to get to first base. It reminded me of 2017 World Series Game 7, that play in the first inning where first baseman Cody Bellinger should have let the second baseman get it. Instead, he fielded it, and then they didn't get the out, and the wheels came off from there. Sorry to bring up that game. But yeah, so Kike is almost too athletic for his own good sometimes there at first base. But I've mentioned many times, I love having a middle infielder playing first base over there. Obviously, the scoops aren't as good as they would be with Freddie, but the actual fielding ground balls and everything, it's definitely not a step down from Freddie.
Yeah, it's just a different step, I guess. Not a step down, just a step to the right where you're going to get to a lot more balls. But maybe you're going to miss a scoop like you did in that one game. But yeah, Freddie's going to be back on Friday. Dave Roberts said he looks and feels great. That coincides with his bobblehead night, so that'll be fun. Hopefully, maybe not a walk off, but maybe a 2-homer game early in the game, just so it doesn't have to worry about it to the 9th inning.
Or 4-homer game. So they win 19-1. Yeah, we don't need a walk off. Walk-offs are fun after the fact, but after this last 6 games, let's go for some easy wins,
Yeah, with the Dodgers bullpen, there's one guy that could be coming back soon, Evan Phillips. With the Dodgers rotation, there's one guy that could be coming back soon, and Tony Gonsolin. They're both playing with the OKC Comets right now. There's also a couple other guys that are intriguing down there in AAA, so we're going to talk about all of them. Make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. The Lakers officially clinched a spot in the playoffs, and that $5 bet would have been the easiest bet I would have ever made. Was the Luka over on points in his first game in Dallas. I'm sure that over smashed relatively easily because he scored 45 points. That would have been my $5 bet to get the $250 tonight, but there's a lot of other $5 bets you can make and get those $250 in bonus bets. Go check out FanDuel. From 3-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. And even if the game's already tipped off, you can still get in with some live prop bets, build the same game parlay, and give you a chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. I want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, an everydayer is just someone that listens or watches every day. We appreciate those of you that are here live in the chat with us on YouTube that are everydayers. We appreciate those of you listening at a later time or watching at a later time. Everydayers make up, the bulk of this podcast, and we appreciate those of you that are. And if you're not an everydayer, we're in season. We got a lot of games to talk about. We got a lot of things to talk about, so why not check us out every single weekday? And if you want to go beyond the podcast, give me Locked On Dodgers Insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us, keeping you up to date with the Dodgers, and get an invite to our exclusive Discord server where you can talk Dodgers. That Discord server was popping today. A lot of people either not working or taking a break from work and talking Dodgers while this game was going on. So that's a lot of fun. And one of the things we didn't talk about, but we'll talk about now, is guys that are coming back soon. Evan Phillips pitched for the OKC Comets. Tony Gonsolin pitched for the OKC Comets. There's a couple other guys we'll get into that aren't rehabbing, but just getting some work down there or starting the season down there like they were supposed to. But Jeff, for Gonsolin, Robert said they kind of want to build up to 5 innings, whatever that pitch range is, probably 85 plus. I would imagine he did go into the 4th inning on Wednesday. That was mostly because of efficiency, not necessarily because they wanted him to go into the 4th inning, but that's a good sign. He had a lot of swings and misses.
Yeah, he threw 46 pitches in 3 1/3, 3 2/3. Struck out 7 in that time. So to be that efficient, even with those strikeouts, he was just pounding the strike zone, looked really good. All his pitches were looking good, and definitely a good sign. His fastball velocity average just over 93 miles an hour, which is getting there to where we want him to be. He's never been a flamethrower. He's more of a multi-pitch guy, keep you on your toes. The change-up, split, or whatever you want to call it, is really, really good. That was all good news. You kind of wish, with the way things are going, that he was a little bit more built up so that he could take that spot next week when Landon Knack is going to pitch instead. But you start wondering, okay, if Blake Snell really is just out the 2 weeks, then around the time he's ready to come back, that's when Gonsolin would be ready to come back too. Roughly then. We know that Ohtani isn't going to pitch anytime soon. And so you start thinking, well, would they do the 6-man rotation, even though then that does drop a reliever off? Because like we said, right now they do have one reliever who isn't great. That's Luis Garcia, who is just keeping a spot warm. And maybe this conversation has to include Evan Phillips too, because like you said, Phillips pitched 2 and was bad. Struggled really, really bad. Didn't even get through an inning, gave up 3 runs. And hasn't looked, I feel like he's not as close to coming back as we hoped he was. And we've always kind of assumed, okay, that's who Luis Garcia is keeping the seat warm for. But if Gonsolin's ready to come back before Phillips is and before Kopech is, maybe they do drop Luis Garcia and add Gonsolin and have a 6-man rotation, at least temporarily, until the next starter gets hurt, and go that way.
Yeah, and we talked about this a lot in the offseason when we were thinking about Ohtani, and they kind of mentioned, maybe May as a possible return, and that made sense for them to have the 6-man rotation because they have a lot less off days in May than they did in April. And ultimately, I think that is what's going to happen. Like if even if Snell doesn't come back, they'll keep Knack or whoever in that other spot, but they'll call up Gonsolin. I think they might go 6-man rotation. And knowing that Gonsolin has an option, it might be like, okay, Gonsolin, we need you this time around for the 6-man, so you're going to pitch. Maybe we don't need you again for 2 weeks because we do have an off day or two, and we can, move stuff around and maybe get option back down. And I think that they're going to have to monitor this the rest of the way, because the way guys are going, if they only want Roki and Yamamoto to throw once a week, they're not going to be able to sustain it with the 5-man rotation, and it's going to be hard to sustain it, bringing guys up and down or hoping that there's not other injuries. So, yeah, I think that's kind of what they're building toward. And, for Evan Phillips, even though he's been rehabbing for about a week now, maybe week 10 days or so, it feels like he's at the start of spring training. So he's still going to need, the full rehab time to kind of get that work in, do a, up and down, maybe back-to-back days. And there's still a lot to get worked in there. And, maybe he's just not built up yet.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is when you look at the 40-man roster, it's not like they have relievers pounding on the door either. Like they only have 2 relief pitchers in the minors right now who are on the 40-man roster, and that's Matt Sauer, who is a warm body. and I'm happy that he has a job. And then there's Noah Davis, who has a 16.8 ERA in AAA. So, like, chances are Sauer will be back in the big leagues at some point, just out of necessity. But more realistically, like, it's going to be, if they did go to Gonsolin for a 6-man rotation, Luis Garcia is the easy man out, But then when Kopech comes back, if they were doing that, well, then you start thinking one of these guys who deserves to be in the big leagues, like Ben Casparis or Jack Dreyer, is going to go down just because they have options. I think there's a very good chance that we see one or both of those guys spend time in the minors this year. Now, unless, of course, injuries solve that problem.
Blake Treinen's going to have a sore arm in May or June.
Yeah, maybe they avoid the minor leagues just by, when you've got these guys who are, Treinen is however old he is, born June 30th, 1988. So he's a little
35.
bit, just younger than Kershaw, a couple months younger than
37.
Kershaw. He'll be 37 in June. And Kirby Yates is a year older than that, just turned 38. So plenty of age-related guys who they're not going to stay healthy all season. And they don't necessarily want them to stay healthy all season. They don't want them to pitch 75 games this year. You want those guys to pitch 50 to 55 games and then pitch some really important games in October. So I'm really curious to see how all this works out, because most years you do have this shuttle back and forth of major league ready relievers who probably deserve to be in the big leagues, but just for roster reasons, they're in the minors. And we'll probably have some of that, but I'm interested to see how much of that we have this year, just the nature of this roster.
Yeah, it's one of those where they have 10 major league caliber relievers, and it's just a matter of, are they all going to be healthy at any point to where you do have to, send some of these guys down, or is it just going to be a rotation on the reliever side where, guys are moving around because of injury or because of whatever, here and there. So that's kind of where they're at there. I see a question here about Casparis starting.
And we talked a little bit about that on this morning's show. I think that was when it was, sometime recently. Pretend it was this morning's show if it wasn't, and go watch that one because we need more numbers on that one. But it's an option. But because they do have Gonsolin coming back, they do have Ohtani at some point. It's really, as frustrating as it was the last 2 days, this was kind of an anomaly. The fact that they had Snell get hurt and a day that they needed a spot start on back-to-back days. If Snell hadn't gotten hurt, this would have only been one bad start, not back-to-back bad starts. And so it's easy when you have the season blinders on and only today matters to think, well, this is terrible. I saw somebody today say, what happened to all that pitching depth the Dodgers have? Well, 2 of them pitched yesterday and today. Depth doesn't always mean they're great, but Bobby Miller is part of that depth. We don't know how good he's going to be. Emmett Sheehan is part of that depth, but he's not back yet. Clayton Kershaw and Shohei Ohtani are part of that depth, but they're not back yet. And so the depth is more to get them through the season so that in October they have at least 4 really good starting pitchers available, unlike last year. That's the whole point of the depth.
The depth was they didn't have some random guy pitching on Wednesday.
Yeah, Kike Hernandez didn't have to start the game, and it wasn't they
didn't have to call Rich Hill to come pitch for one game.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who it was that made a start sometime in the last couple of years. But there's always guys who you look back, you're like, wait, that guy made a start for my favorite team, and I don't even recognize his name. That's what we're talking about with depth. These guys, as bad as Robleski and Knack were these 2 days, they're guys we know, and they're guys who actually might end up being good big league pitchers eventually. It's just right now, think of it like the 1989 Braves when Tom Glavine went out. I'm going to pull this up because Tom Glavine and John Smoltz both ended up in the Hall of Fame, deservedly. In 1989, or let's go 88, Tom Glavine was 7-17. John Smoltz was 2-7 with a 5.48 ERA. And those guys, if they were on a team that was fighting to win the World Series, they wouldn't have gotten opportunities. They were able to pitch because they were on a crappy team that wasn't pretending to be anything other than a crappy team, and they got that experience. So it's always been the challenge of being a team in the Dodgers situation where your goal is to win a World Series. So it is harder to give these guys these starts, but it's not the end of the world to let these guys go get knocked around in the big leagues a little bit because, as I've said many times, there's certain things about pitching in the big leagues that you can only learn by pitching in the big leagues.
Yeah. And in the midst of, pitching aside, in the midst of Andy Pages and the struggles from everybody that's not the first five in the lineup, people are starting to look down in AAA and notice numbers and notice names and start talking about that. Hyeseong Kim is definitely one that we've talked about already, who's succeeding on offense down by numbers wise. We were talking earlier and you mentioned that Hyeseong Kim had a double, and I had seen his first double, not his second double. And his first double, I mentioned, like, every time I see them post a highlight of his, it's a ground ball to the right side that gets past the first baseman. And that was his first double, but then the second double was a legitimately good hit. But, he's doing well down there, but they did mention that he's down there for a reason. They want him to, get ready to go. They're playing him in center field a lot. So while I'd imagine that there's already rumblings of calling him up, I do think he's going to have a couple more weeks down there before that's even a thought.
Yeah, he's currently batting .326 with a .931 OPS, but you got to remember the PCL is a hitter's league. And, I know for a fact, I watched one of his doubles. It was a fly out to left that because of the wind and a bad left fielder, it turned into a double. So, you can't just look at stats and the Dodgers look at all that. And the fact that he is striking out about a third of the time in AAA, that's definitely something they're going to want to see cut down on before they call him up. Is that his name? Kyle Freeland? No, that's Alex Freeland. Kyle Freeland pitches for the Rockies. Yeah. Alex Freeland is batting .356 with a .966 OPS in that hitters league. And I think the only thing I have to say is Andy Pages and James Outman tore it up in Oklahoma City too. That's the grain of salt you got to take with all of this. And not to say that these guys aren't going to be good big league hitters, but we do need to pump the brakes a little bit and remember their development is the most important thing to the Dodgers, especially in April.
Who was the third baseman last year that we all wanted? I don't know if we wanted him, but a lot of people wanted him.
Yeah, I can't even remember his name right now.
I don't remember who it was, but he hit well, and then he didn't stick around with the Dodgers in the minors. So.
Yeah, that's frustrating that I can't remember his name right now. But yeah, the Dodgers had signed him as a minor league free agent, and then he hit really well in Oklahoma City, and he never got called up. And now he's playing for somebody else's AAA team this year because he's just kind of a AAA player. And then people ask about Ryan Ward. He's batting .415 with an OPS over 1,000. Ryan Ward has done that in AAA for several years. Problem is Ryan Ward can't play defense at any position. And so, we saw even at first base in the spring, he dropped 2 easy pop-ups. He's a DH, and the Dodgers have a DH who's better than him. Michael Chavis is hitting well, but not on the 40-man roster. And, he'd have to hit well for a lot longer before we really believe that he's the guy. There's definitely and Dalton Rushing is hitting okay. 278 average, 803 OPS. He's the
Andre Lipsius.
Andre Lipsius, that's right. So there's a lot of guys there in AAA who maybe will eventually be the. And did you mention Esteury Ruiz?
I haven't mentioned him yet.
He hit a home run today. He's batting .350 with a .985 OPS in, I think it's 4 games now with Oklahoma City since the Dodgers got him. But he's a guy who, the speed would be nice. I wish that he was the elite defender that a guy as fast as him should be, instead of being like Terrence Gore, super fast, but still can't play defense somehow, or Juan Pierre. How are you so fast and still so bad at playing defense? Because if he could play defense, I'd be okay. Bring him up, even if it's just the speed and the defense. Put him in center field, let him bat ninth. But yeah, the defense still has something to prove. So there's a lot of options, and I think we'll see a lot of these guys this year as time goes by. But the Dodgers are definitely not going to panic because they recognize it's a long season. Despite everything that's gone wrong the last 6 days, they are still 10-4 and very close in the division, and eventually going to win this division by a lot. And and they get Freddie Freeman back on Friday.
Yeah, that's going to help the lineup out, definitely. And, probably keep Pages out of center field a lot of days if they move guys around. Or specifically, Kike might play a little bit more out there in center. So, we'll see what they end up doing. There's still a lot to happen. But Dodgers have the day off, come back home for the weekend, and stay there for, I think, two series maybe. So, That's going to do it for today's episode. Thank y'all for listening. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us where we get podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and get notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live. You can go beyond the podcast, go Locked On Dodgers Insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us and join our exclusive Discord server. You can check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at SnyDog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you're in your car, if you're at home, text my advice, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.